So you've decided you want to be a composer. That's great. Now what? Good morning from Minneapolis, folks. This video is in response to a couple of questions I've gotten over the last week regarding education, internships, and how to go about starting down the process of turning this thing called composing into a career. So if you have questions about any of those things, this one is for you. So the first thing you must keep in mind is that, you guys, this is a marathon. It's not a sprint. The career arc for most composers is going to be one of decades. I think it's a safe assumption to say that you can spend anywhere between 3 and 10 years before composing looks anything like a career. So let's think about this in a little bit different way. Let's conduct an exercise. Think of your 3 favorite film scores. And now think about the age that that composer was when they composed that film score. More likely than not, they were in their 40s, their 50s, or their 60s. Strap in, you guys. It's going to be a long ride, although a fun one. So if you've squared with the fact that you're okay, that this is going to be a career that's going to mature slowly, and you're ready to move on to the first step of things, the first step is to educate. Now, that might mean college. It might not mean college. That is a very personal decision, but I want to make you aware of a couple of things regarding education. There are really kind of 2 types of undergraduate or beginning entry-level education if you're going to attend college. The first of which is sort of a conservatory type training, which is a very specialized type education for people that want to be musicians or composers or performers as a vocation. And then there's also more of a generalized 4-year type university, as well as 2-year options. And these might take the form of more technical trainings or more liberal arts educations, which give you a broader base of the humanities, where you're not studying just music, but also more generalized, well-rounded education as well. Alternatively, because of your financial situation or because you self-educate and because you have an incredible amount of discipline, maybe you're going to decide to not go to college and self-educate. You guys, self-education, regardless of whether you attend school or not, is going to be so incredibly important. There are professional aspects of this career of being a composer or an orchestrator, whatever, that you just won't learn in school and need to be learned on the job or through research that you do on your own. Now, there are pros and cons to, yes, I'm going to attend college, or you know what, I think I can go this alone. I think I can self-educate on my own. The pros of attending a college or a university are that you are going to have access to their facilities, their faculty, their instruments, their technical resources. All of those things you might not have access to outside of a college or university setting. But at the same time, I don't know what it is like in the rest of the world, you guys, but if you graduate from college in the United States, expect on average to graduate with near $30,000 in student debt. If you're pursuing a career in the arts, that could sound like a real liability. And you guys, far be it from me to say, yes, you should go to school. Nah, don't go to college. It's not my place. It's a hugely expensive and personal decision, but you should be aware of what it is you want your educational outcomes to be and allow those factors to help inform your decision. So something to bear in mind is the decision to either attend college or not attend school. That's not going to be the determining factor about whether you become a successful composer or not. Take, for example, one of my mentors. He's in his 60s now. He's had and continues to have a hugely successful career writing music for film and television. He attended a little bit of college and then didn't finish school. And when he was attending, he was studying fine art, I believe. And you guys, he's hugely successful. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, another one of my mentors, he's a Hollywood orchestrator. He's now the head of a department out east. He graduated from Berkeley for his undergraduate, got a certificate from USC for film scoring, and also hugely successful in his respective path. The fact of the matter is, you guys, education, regardless of whether you self-educate or go to college, it's important, but it's not going to determine whether or not you become successful. It's early, so I need more coffee. All right, you guys, number 2, the second thing you should start doing as you kind of start moving along this professional path that you're on, increase your technical chops and your computer proficiency regarding music. I don't care whether you're using Pro Tools or Logic or Cubase or Reaper or Ableton, I don't care. Know it backwards and forwards. And you might even get some benefit from learning a little bit about each of them, because who knows where you're going to end up. The fact of the matter is, when you get into your first professional situation, regardless of whether that's an internship or you become a composer's assistant, your technical abilities will be hugely important to you guys. They're going to value you for your abilities to do technical work much more than your ability to compose a cue or do work that's more musically oriented. In this type of position, there will be no hand-holding, you guys. You have to show up on day one ready to do real work. And this is what's really going to separate people in terms of whether they move on and continue to have a successful career quickly, or whether they get held back or don't get as many opportunities in the studios that they end up in. The hard truth is that there's just way too much competition out there early on in these careers, you guys. There's way too many people trying to be film composers, get internships, get assistantships. So if you're not one of the folks that has great technical chops, it would hugely benefit you to spend some time really bolstering your abilities at a computer. So the next obvious question is, Will, you're talking about internships and assistantships. What are those and how do I get one? So internships are essentially in-studio learning opportunities with composers. These are best taken on while you're in school, and that's true for probably two primary reasons. Number one, it's hard to get an internship these days as a non-student. If you see a posting for an internship, oftentimes at the very bottom it will say, must be a student or enrolled at a university to engage in the internship. And that's because more often than not, you guys, unfortunately, these aren't paid positions. And so if you're not getting credit for doing your work as an intern, it's considered exploitative and in some cases illegal for you to work for free at a composer's studio. Now, does that mean that it doesn't happen all the time? Of course not. Of course, people are working free internships. And guess what? Those are valuable experiences too. Now, the second reason that you might actually want to get an internship as a student is because you're working for free. You don't have many financial obligations in college. You really don't have a family to provide for. You don't have a mortgage. Do it early. Guys, if I had to think about working for free right now with all the responsibilities that I have to my partner, my home, I couldn't do it. So make sure you get it done while you're a student and get it done early. Another thing about internships, this is your opportunity to shine. You guys, when composers pick assistants and pick technical staff or staff writers, they're picking them from their internees, you guys, okay? So if they have someone that really shines, that goes above and beyond, that does the things no one else wants to do, picking up dry cleaning, reformatting hard drives, these are the people that composers are going to be picking up for paid positions later on. Is it guaranteed? No, but it sure doesn't hurt your chances. And one of those paid positions is an assistant or a composer's assistant. So this is kind of like someone who does a lot of the technical aspects that the composer doesn't have time to do. They handle the composer's calendars. They help remind the composer, okay, you have a meeting with the director this time at the afternoon. Computer crashes. The assistant is right upstairs fixing the computer for the composer so they can start writing right away. As where an internship is generally an unpaid position, an assistant is generally going to be a paid on-staff position. The great thing about being an assistant too is that generally speaking, you are going to be the first picked if the composer needs additional writers. Say that they have a dedicated ghostwriter or someone we call a second writer. If that person is too tied up or if a production deadline gets too close, generally the composer is going to pick the assistant and say, hey, we don't have time to finish the cues, strap up, you're in. Another thing to keep in mind, both for internships and assistantships, you guys, this is not about you. You are in a support position. Don't try to steal business from the composer. That is the fastest way to get fired. Don't make friends with the directors trying to get work from them. That's another great way to get fired. Your job is to support that composer and be as helpful as you can in their creative process. So how in the world do I get an internship or an assistantship? First thing you can do, tell everyone you know what you're doing. The truth of the matter is, you guys, everybody has some extraneous uncle out in Los Angeles who knows somebody that knows somebody who works at a studio who knows a composer in need of some help at the studio. Everyone's got an aunt living in New York who has a friend named Claudius, whose second husband is a composer, and man, he could use some help with the studio too. The fact of the matter is, guys, tell everybody what you're up to. Broadcast it, family, friends, who knows what connections can arise out of that. Number 2, maybe consider moving to an industry center like Los Angeles, like New York. Now, you guys are probably going to call me out and be like, Will, you're a hypocrite. You live in Minneapolis and you're telling us to move to Los Angeles and New York? Yeah, you're right, guys. I do live in Minneapolis, but I lived in Los Angeles after college, okay? I did this deal. So why move to an industry center, though, at least for a time? Move there for a time because your opportunities are going to be more plentiful for internships and assistantships, and you're going to have more cracks at the base to try to hit one out of the park and get a position like that. If you're living in Ames, Iowa, chances are there aren't going to be many opportunities to be an intern at a studio or be a composer's assistant. Is it hypothetically possible? Yeah, likely, probably not. Keep this in mind though. If you move to an industry center and decide later that it isn't right for you, that's fine, you guys. I lived in Los Angeles for a year, decided that the lifestyle, the culture, and everything else wasn't for me, moved back to Minneapolis, and because of the people that I met out there, and because I work really hard at keeping those relationships intact, I still have opportunities to do work remotely from Los Angeles in Minneapolis. You guys, it can sometimes be a really good idea and really be worth your time to spend some time in an industry center. Number 3, and you're gonna laugh until I explain it, but number 3 is Google it. You guys, Google is the oracle, the knower of all things, both unimportant and important. But the fact of the matter is, if you Google composing internship or the name of your city plus advertising music, you're going to find that this is the fastest way to get the lay of the land in whatever city you happen to be in. True story. I found my first internship after I moved back from Los Angeles to Minneapolis. I found my first internship here in the cities on Google because I knew I was going to be moving back home. I hopped on the computer. I Googled Minneapolis advertising music, ad houses, and the name of the studio popped up. I applied, didn't hear anything for a couple of months, applied again. And guess what, guys? That was my open door to being a composer here in Minneapolis. Never underestimate the power of the Googles. Number 4, attend meetups in that city. I was giving a talk in Hollywood about MIDI orchestration when I was living out in Los Angeles. And this gentleman approached me afterwards and he said, you know, I kind of heard that you were doing some commercial music and some film music. I got this guy I think you should talk to. And I was like, sounds great. We exchanged cards. And before I knew it, I was standing in Harry Gregson Williams' old studio in Venice talking with this commercial composer. That's that's a connection I never would have had if I hadn't attended some random meetup to go talk in Hollywood. You guys, meetups can be a great way to meet your peers, your colleagues, and maybe spin out some opportunities from that as well. All right, finally, number 5, another way to get an internship or an assistantship, or at least start sniffing out opportunities, is to send cold emails. The grind of cold emails. Now, cold emails, if you're sending respectful emails, if you're not being annoying, and if you're following up after a couple of weeks have passed, can be a way to kind of get your foot in the door. The unfortunate truth about this is that cold emails have a notoriously low success rate. You could send out 100 emails, at least in my experience, and get 5 answers back, 4 of which will be, thank you for your email, but no thank you. We don't need any help. But maybe that one email out of 100, maybe that is your doorway into starting your time at a studio as an intern. Now, I've mentioned this already, but I want to just further emphasize it a little bit. I cannot tell you how important it is to be respectful and polite in those emails. Spell things correctly. Oh my Lord, you guys. The grammar of emails that we get sometimes is horrendous. Spell things correctly, be polite, don't be annoying, and go ahead and follow up. There was this really unfortunate thing that happened to me a week or 2 ago. I had a young composer reach out to me, and they said, hey, would you be willing to take a listen to a couple of my tracks and maybe just give me some feedback? I said, I responded. I said, I would love to, and he sent me a track. I gave him some advice. I said, I think your piece is lovely. I think that it would benefit from maybe these couple of things. And then we were scheduled to try and have a phone conversation. I said, how does this time sound? And he never followed up. You guys be respectful of composers' time. If they offer you time, take advantage of it. And be sure, if you don't hear back only once, go ahead and follow up with an email. Okay, you've told your friends and family, you have maybe moved to an industry center, and you've been sending cold emails, and finally you get an opportunity. You've been invited into the studio of a composer for an interview to discuss the potential of spending some time there. What now? Here are some tips for the interview. Number 1, do not overdress. You guys, embarrassing story. I was living in Culver City, went to an internship interview with my roommate at the studio of a composer there in Culver City. My roommate wore a suit. I wore a sports jacket blazer and dress pants. Thankfully, I think I didn't wear a tie. And we get to the studio. The technical director walks out wearing jeans, a t-shirt, and tennis shoes. And the composer's assistant walks out dressed very casually. Guys, we looked like used car salesmen standing next to them. Don't overdress. Dress stylishly and dress well, but don't overdress. Please don't make my mistakes. Number 2, bring a resume and print it on resume paper. Number 3, be polite and conversational. You guys, as an intern or as an assistant, they want to hire someone they can spend 10 to 16-hour days with and not want to kill them. They need to like you. Number 4, don't talk about your own work. Again, you're not there necessarily even in a musical capacity. Someday you could be, but for the time being, you're going to be a technical assistant. You're going to be helping that composer and their assistants and their tech staff have easier days, okay? You are a support position. This is not about you. So you have finally gotten your internship or your assistant. Guess what? It might take a couple interviews. You might be looking for a while, but when you finally get that internship or that assistantship, then there's an opportunity to continue the process of building your own career outside the studio. This is the time at which, and even before this is a great time to start visiting film campuses and meeting student directors. I would literally go and loiter at a film campus here in Minneapolis, tap on the shoulders of student directors and say, hey, my name's Will. What is it you guys are working on? Oh, I love horror films. I'm a film composer. What kind of music are you interested in? And having those conversations. When I was living in Los Angeles, I went and spent a little time on the USC campus and shook hands with student filmmakers. And sometimes you'll get results. Sometimes you'll meet people. Sometimes you won't, but it's worth a try. The reason we do this, guys, is because as those student filmmakers grow and grow and grow, if you're one of their first collaborations and that collaboration goes well, they're going to take you with them as they grow in their careers. These relationships that begin early on in folks' creative careers oftentimes carry through for the remainder of their careers. So for those of you looking for internships, what questions do you have about internships? For those of you that have worked an internship or have been a composer's assistant before, what internship and assistantship stories do you have? I know we've got some good ones out there. Well, you guys, for the time being, stay healthy, be well, and stop listening to me. Go write some music. Hi. What's that? Uh-huh. Okay, I'll tell them. Asha says if you enjoyed this video, you should like and subscribe below. I mean, she'd appreciate it.